Welcome to Wake, a cold reading of James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake, just to hear it out loud. Join Toby Malone and TJ Young, along with some special friends, as we puzzle our way through what we once thought was an unreadable book to produce a surprisingly listenable podcast. It is Monday, August 26th, 2024. It has been 101 days since we have started reading, with 292 pages complete of 628, meaning we have 336 pages left to go, and are 46.5% of the way through Finnegan's Wake. Welcome to episode 21 of Wake, the podcast where we bring the heat, explain the cold, and puzzle over what's temperate, all in the name of fulfilling a long-held bucket list item, reading James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake out loud just once. I am your host, Toby Malone, and we jump right back into the reading this week. If you haven't listened to the last couple of episodes, I suggest you go back there first, as myself, TJ Young, and Neil Wechsler are taking on the roles of Sean, Shem, and Izzy in the legendary Night Lessons episode, which is formatted with marginalia, columns, and footnotes. For this week's reading, and if you're following along in your text, the central column, including footnotes, will be read by TJ, the left column will be read by Toby, and the right column will be read by Neil. We also have a slight technical hiccup that happens later on in the episode where TJ's internet drops out. We do recover for him for a few moments, and then he is able to come back into the episode. See if you can spot where that happens. As always, we are reading from the Penguin Modern Classics edition of Finnegan's Wake, published in 2000 with a foreword by Seamus Dean. Today we'll be reading the third part of Chapter 2.2 from pages 293 to 308 in this edition. This is a segment that is titled Night Lessons by the Oxford World's Classic edition of 2012, which also includes brief summaries of what is happening in each subsection, which we will address at the end of the reading. And now, without further ado, Finnegan's Wake.
Cosset, you pran.
Why my as likewise was his.
You make what name, and in truth as a poor soul in between shift and shift ere the death he has lived through becomes the life he is to die into. He had all, but he was rickets as to reasons, but the balance of his minds was stables, lost himself someone, scrupion, so over which had he or he gets, Murphy come, Murphy go, Murphy plant, Murphy grow. Maria Malaysia Murphys in the lazily eyes of his lapis. A classic Euclidean construction of an equilateral triangle that also resembles a vagina. Vasius von der Blün.
Alteratant of the interplay of bones in the womb.
'Twas one of dozen deems, a darkey's dean in D-wood, the turnpike under the great elm, with Merringstone in foreground. Decordium's dream, country where the better lies blow. Give now, and lynch you taken all. Allow me, and heavingly all jaw-breakingly expressions out of old Tsar's Isaac. Oh, laughing Sally, are we going to be toad-haunted by the old parent fox, Sir Somebody Something Brut, for the rest of our secret scripture? Universal of spacious artist mystic unsaid, A is for Anna, like L is for live.
The vortex, spring of sprung verse, the ver-tex.
Aha, ha, 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 Auntie Anne, you're apt to ape Auntie Anna live. Dawn gives rise, lo, lo, lives love. Eve takes fall, la, la, laugh, leaves, alas. I, Auntie Anne, we're last to the lost Lulu. 'Tis perfect. Now, lend you dappled ye here, mine's Operian shill and wall. We see the Coppengink strayed line all in figure, the foremost, from the forest from being continued, stops Aunt Lamde, ex pep off Carpentering Stret, the kids and dolls home, Macacak Mater inload there too, allow me anchor. I bring down Noth and carry Now, then, take this in. One of the most memorable loose corollaries or the ever Ellis through in cooking class.
Saga, path of outgoing.
With Ulf as centrum and Ulf's lambtail for his spokesman, circumscript, a cyclone, a Lautier, hoop, as round as the calf of an egg. Oh dear me now, another grand discobly. After make fearsome's ocean, you've actually induct one. Quack. Why, you haven't a passer. Fantastic, airily clever, surely doomed to Swift's alas the Galehus.
Docetism and Didacism, Maya, Thea, Tamas, Raja, Sattvas.
Match of a matchness, like you big dadder in the Boudeville song Grotsky Golvar's troubles, rocking his favorite turkey in the smucking precincts of Lytus. A vagrant need and flagrant weed, with Mary Owens and Dolly Monks sidling to edge his crupulence and Blake Roosh, Kingston and Dorkrell oscillating him from Afuns are Papachopo Potl, grand for blowing off steam when you walk up in the morning. Abram Bradley King, ting ting, ting ting, by his magmism fall, lumps, lavas and all, at the foot of Bagenbun Bansburn Day, was lost on one. Beaning, but thunder and and turf. It's not a lover yet. One recalls Byzantine. The mystery repeats itself to date as our callback mother, Gaidiana, that was daughters to a tanner were all found of our uh, were all found of our animal matter. Used to sing, as I think, now and then consciously over her posset pot and her queer homunculus, humny bass, hesteridae, and isteridae forever. Sewing up the belly bursts in their buckskin shorts for big Capitan Killycook and the Jukes of Kellingly. Vanius Vanstia's Tums.
The vegetable cell and its private properties.
And for a night of thurring diarist and a day, a great shape-sphere puns it. In effect, I remumble from the Yules gone by, per little murr of my hind, so she used indeed. When she give me the sunder cloths, she hung up the tate, and coming and snuffed out the ghost in the cradle as his old game and a haunt of sleeper. Faithful departed. When I'm dreaming back like that, I begins to see we're all only telescopes, or the commonly suns. Like when I dromed when I was dairy and I was woken up with thrump of thunder down. Rest in peace, but to return. Say where? A, a timbrel fill of twinkle tinkle. What a wonderful memory you have too. Wonderful mummery. Strabonary. Benny, I bring town air and carry Nothung up my sleeve. Now, springing quickly from the mudland from Lucian and all him as her elder Tetra turn a somersault. All's fair on all's fours, as my instructor unstrict me. Watch, and you'll have the whole inkle. Allow. Jeer o, Girio tundo, hop, hop lala, as umpty hiram as your seat. Oh dear me, that was very nice indeed, and makes us a daintily pair of accomplices.
The haves and the have-nots. A distinction.
You, all us, for the Kernst and me for umthing with the handle of it. BV, now, as will presently be felt, there's two tricklesome poids where are twain of doubling by circulars, mating approximately with the sweet poi done loop into each and oucher. Lucy here, I fee where you may the double viewed seed, none, lemon squashed, vid pervois, axtium, and I think it as I'm sequet Sequeeze in the lemon, stick me punctum, but for Seminole rations, I'd like long by RX uh, to Mac a capital P for pride down there on the bottom. Parsi French for the upholstered would be delighted, where Hoodum and Heave, our monster bilker, balked his bod of parodies.
Zwei Spaltung as fundamentalisch of Wiederherstellung.
And let you go, Arminius, and make your modest mock pie out of humbles up your end, where your apex, O Jesus, would be a point of order. With the ganging groan, grunt, and the croak, click, cluck, I'll pass out if the screw splish his strut. And my facing kink and kirkle trying to make keek peep. Thargarm, then Geolia gum. If you sink, I can swim forward. Suck some kale. Are you right there, Michael? Are you right? Do you think you could hold on by sitting tight? Well, of course, it's awfully angelus. Still, I don't feel it's so dangerous. I'm right here, Nickel, and I'll write, singing the top line why it suits me Mickey fine. But Yag Hags, Hogwarts, and Ara Quintanthience, it's the muddiest thick that was ever heard dump since Erg's matter got smothered in in the lap of a fan. Now, to complete angles, beloved Byronithian and Hushthocan Histacastian join Aphel P and pull loose by Dottie's and to be more sparamadically logical. Elpi and Paleable by Truckles. Allow me a line while I enclose auspicious. The Nike done it like pa. Hasentence, I pay, innate little boundary, and as plain as a poke stiff. The impudent, the impudence of that in girls' things. Now, aqua and bucket. I'll make you to see figuratively the whom of your eternal geomatter. And if you flung her headdress on her from under her high lows, you'd wheeze whence Solomon's son set is still in a hexing gown. The shape of Dona Speranza of the Nicion. Hiss.
Destiny, influence of design upon.
Or go on, fin for fun. You spat your shower like a son of Sibernia, but let's have at it. Sub 10 to me now. Pisk. Outer surpustance being elk wheeled. We carefully, if she pleats, lift by her seam, him, and Jabut at the spendiest of trickicate, like thousands done before since Philly's culpered. A cone. The maid's apron of our ALP, fearfully, till it's neither nadir is vertically where allow me all right, too cute, too cute wrinkles, its navel's apex will have a bean bee.
Prometheus, or the promise of provision.
You must approach near mere for at is dark, lob, and light your mech, gently, geldy, and this is what you'll say. Oogle, eagle, oogle, me vita me. Watish, salush, pla, and there, redneck, for and we gay at sea with pull and punka's bell, Miggy and thy, and living spit of dead waters. It is Sanganon's dream. Fastness firm of hurtleberry fen, distinct and isoplural in its your so to the double sixes parts, flument, flevy, and flutius, midden wedge of the streams, your muddy old triangular delta, fihum, miho, plain for you now, apia, lapia, pluvaville, hop the hula girls, that no niggard spot of her safety volve. First of all, squilential triangles. And why wouldn't she sit? crest-logged like, the last that Lord the tailor, the constant of Fluxon, Mahawatama, pride of province, and all mankind. And when that titled boar rushes up from the Afrantic, Aleph Quarins his bet Uda beer, Juan Gupus the paddle, and Whis Wee Woo.
Ambages and their role.
Pa lickum, ap la, oplop. This is and her. You see her it, which in whom you see it is her. And if you could goneg better, you'd soon see some raffant scrumala riffa. Quickens hear it, force yandering, quef. So post that to your pape and smart it. And you can haul up the languil pennant, mate. I've read your tongue's dismarge, for let it be taken that her littleness is of no magnitude, or again, let it be granted that doll, the laziest can be dismullet with all respects from doll the fiercest. Therence must any what you like in the power of Anthrohood be either than or less than the unitate.
Ecclesiastical and celestial hierarchies. The ascending, the descending.
We have in one or hint shell vectorously ready eyes or ever to circumflictorent searchal hers never film in the ellipticius of the gyroboids, those fickers which are returnally reproductive of themselves. I enjoy as good as anyone, which is unpassable. Corollarily, the logos for some whom to the base anything, then most characteristically Manitisium minus comes to nolium in the endeth, neither a soul to be saved nor a body to be kicked. Or so, here is now wet badder than the sin of Aha with his cousin Lil, Verswade and covers wise, and all that's consents and contiguous till perp stops repiping him, since her red tangles are all apsian for limitings his tendencies of our fruvilitiny sexagizium, the the boast of the town, to expenses herself as fierce as possible.
The peripatetic periphery. Its alethesis.
Paradigmistic pyramidar in all directions on the bend of the unbridled, the infinitesimals of her facets becoming manier and manier as the calcicolium of her undescribables. One has thoughts of the eternal Rome, shrinks from shructies to shreks. Hens bends. Are we Saudi? We missiled her. We missiled her. Scholium. There are thrice sign heads to every sing, but each of the freed brings ux to be to the feared. Quad, mother of us all. Oh dear me, look at that now. I don't know. Is it your spectra from the omniation? But I'm glad your dimensioned it. My lord, if that ain't just the beatenest lay I ever see, and a superb position, quotient of quedience. Okay.
Canine Venus sublimated to Olytic Aphrodite.
Omnius calumnius, as Oliver Cromwell sang when he sleeped uber his grania mother. Kangaroo's feathers. Who in the name of thunders ever believin' you were that bolt? But you're wholly mooxed and gaping up the wrong plussy. I call that a scrum head. As if you was seeing the geist that stays foreignest you bless simple top domeful, whereas you ballisted loister non's lamp. You must lap wondering down the blustering reflection below. Hers trucks not in her brain box. Here where here were the boggly lines. You see here the puncture. So he done it. Luck. See her good.
Exclusivism, the ors, saws, and fors. Wit.
Well, 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 well. OD, OD. That's very lovely. We like Simperer reach Hamiltones to fellow several tunes O'Hagans. Pure idioms with any way words all in one syllable. G-H-O-T-I smells fish. That's you. When he rolls over his R's and shows the highs of his heels. Vividly lovely entirely. Like a young sheep slang with a tishfisky. So analytically plausible. So analytical plausibly. And be the powers of Maul Kelly, neighbor, top sower, it will be a lozenge for all of my loft. The Doodles family, an M, a delta, a T turned to the right, an X, a square, a triangle without the bottom, an E without its middle spoke. Hoodle Doodle fam? More better two feller would be speak Cooper Rads, even thought about Guinnesses, and the regrettable Parson Rome's advice, want to join the police? Picking on Nick again, Picky Mickey? You know, you were always one of the bright ones, since a foot made you an unmentionable. Fakes. You know, you're the diver's own smart gossoon. Ackwell to yourself and Wangley to Angly other. So you are, hoax. You know, you'll be dampened. So you will. One of these interval days, but you will be our characterly. Early morning, Sir Dave Steffens said the first gentleman in Europe's.
Primo nurature and ultimo geniture.
Whirlpool gayeth that when he stopped, looked time.
Sick us a sock with some sediment in it for the sake of our darning wives.
He stopped long ground, who here hurry, he would have ever the lost word, with a sweet me our eye, ear Marie to read from the Jacobs. Bag, block cheap, have you any will? And a shy pull of toothsake for his arms draw at the slide page of D. Veer Foster, would and could candy kissing P. Kevin to fress up the Rennerung and to ate my heart. Leo, I read, such a Spanish, Eriscribices, all my copsises. Won't be nibbly, raven osnoriosely his mum to me and bewilderment of his chipper churter for, while the other, by the help of his creative mind, offered the deliberate the mass from the booty of fight, uh, our same with our hope of the bounty of food sought to deliberate the mess from the courses of mud with his muffety cuffs own consciously graphicking with his sinister cyclops after Trigomaries inspires woobles, pursuing their roving Hamilton, shelves and Godolphing and fair love to see around the waist of Nolan's Brown's Jesus. What a lubbery wide elephant for the men in the straits. Tore him no quartus. Till that on him pouring sweat the jugular's veins, quench his quill,
No sturm, no drung.
and his Napier scrag strud out birthright Tamquin taut ropes.
Illustration.
Spry him, call a blood leaker. Uh, where's Dr. Brazenraus? S. War was in his present preserite. Oh, he must suffer from his misbelieving fierce maker to his non-credible fancy flame. And she had to seek the ponds of peas to salve her suitorkin's suid. Ask the booth Ask the boothhoon late for mass, pray the baba the blah blah black sheep Sure, you could write any pip-out passage, I bet, as foreign, as phony as the multi-lousy earwig, yourself, Mick, knock the muddy knickers. Excuse therein Christian brothers Irish, Christ Church versus Ballali. Dear, and he went to the scribble gentle mind born milady bred.
Ascription of the active.
He would pin for her, he would pine for her. When she's tripped against the briny bush, he profused her all over with courtesy flowers. How he would pat pun fun for all. A nasty low disagreeable game. With his frolicky frowner so, and his grumsome grinner other so. And how are you, Waggy? Dear old Erosmas, very glad you're going to Penmark, right to the corner, Grunny Grant. My animal, his sorrowful, the tricetate, ate I my liver, se non e vero son trovato. Oh, Jerry, he was so, Harry at all. He was sad fellow, stifle. He was Mr. Mysterion, like a pure rate out of pensionnee with a gouvernement job, all moan day, tears day, wails day, thumpers day, frights day, shatter day, till the fear of the law. Look at this twitches. He was quiz floored, and his plunk raft of shittum wood. Look at him, sink deep or touch not the cart- Cartesian spring.
Prescription of the passive.
One more ashes, Griper? How dimsel he was lying low for his raw side laying siege to Goblin Castle. And besots that, how Hemmens meal he was lying him long, and his laugh side lying sack to Croak's partridge. Be thou wars Rolf's intentions, quoths and bag of gat biscop leech. On oops tipu soon ear if you could me lent till my Pascal Condial Sahib and the prince of a plate of politice, punked with best apologies and merry money, thanks to self for all the clericals, and again begs Gudian for bistra pissing for his benefits.
Ensoling female sustains agonizing overman.
Well, wiggy wagtail. And how are you, Yaggy? With a capital T for thirst. From here, Bouvard to dear Purichant. Blot, now, peel your eyes, my grins, and brush your satin hat, me elementior Joyclid, son of a butt.
When the answerer is a leman.
She's mine, Joy Low Jor. I love to see the Macbeth's jersey knackering sports of the plum duff's pants. Be skibberings eagles, sweet tart of white knees, archway. Watch him, having caught at the biffering callium in his Boleus, the one like underwop he had ever funned without difficult hads, the squivic, signing away the happy next complete, exquisite game of inspiration. I always adored your hand. So could I too, and without the stroke of a pen.
Chiasma to the rescues. The key signature.
Or for oral, key for crib, ocular dolce, and the lung ad lib. Can he write us a last line from Smith Jones Orbison? Itinerarily in years, Jerry Alapalap Loop, and I, Romaine, Hup Ubin Good Girl. Lip years fens you all and mo, Fruveniers frothed as Fummer, Fnau, Fueg, Willings, and Forget Uf Knots. Uns always mein thoughts. To fall there at bare feet, hurry as wormeros. Two dies of one rafflement. Ek benach. Outstamped and distribute him at the expense of his society. To be continued. Anon. And ok, thank ye.
all square and according to Cocker.
All the caricatures. Gag his tubes yourself. In the dream,
This is how San Holly Polly pools, and this pardon ski is the way Rome pull palips. He angel that I thought him, and he not able to spiel Eliotripes, Mr. Tellably difficult. Pose the pen man way me does, way ol' Missa Velatooth, fuss show me how. Fourth power to her, pogue bold strokes for your life, tip.
Four centrals of the fire serpentine: heart, throat, navel, spleen, sacral, fontanella, intertemporal eye.
this is Steele, this is Bark, this is Strom, this is Schwarp, this is Wiles, this is Shaw, this is Dublin and a Barry Yates. When the dander rattles for how the peacocks prance. This is brave Danny weeping his space for the paupers. This is cool Connolly wiping his hearth with brave Danny. And this, regard.
Conception of the compromise and finding of a formula.
How Charles Schwerd Parparagelia goes between brave Danny Boy and the Connolly. Up in Shadiam's top, spoketh hath La Arthi Magari, Ebrog Rach Pruaf, the brownest de brown, brownie of Castle Hacken Nolan, and Kev was wretched with his pother.
Troth blowers, fig and thistle plot, a pig and whistle.
But that Jacoby feeling between the forbidden fruit and my generousness, Kiwi too, he just loves his puppendums, I judge. After all his autocratic writings and parables and famicobes and muddlegiums.
Ideal present alone produces real future.
The far roots Hoff Cholchow and eight Citron who didn't one able rep for the Triper Farator all right blast through his pergaman, hit him where he lived, and do for the blessed self churls that I think smarter like it done for many other umptuous of the hairy dairy quadri firstings till at length you one bladdy bragger by mercy stroke he measured his earth anyway could not but reckon with his otter's batter catter away our Frankson, who, to be plain, uh, he fight him all time to feller, longing kill dead, finish bloody face, blong you, was Miss O'Kane. Whence wans one, rip. Bye bye, bing bang boys, see you Nutcracker Sunday. And his counting hands rose, for Melissa loves death how simple.
With Ebenezer in picks.
Slutnings bang, chin chin, caldermans, chap chop chap.
Eucharisk, mercy buckup, and wind, and mind who you're pucking, flebby.
Service superseding self.
Thanks ere so much point carried. I can't say if it's the weight you strike me to the quick or that red mass I was looking at, but at the present momentum, potential as I am, I'm seeing rains bogies rings round me. Honors to you, and may you be commended for your exhibitiveness. I'd love to take you to a bugaboo ride and play funnerer all if you'd only sit and be that blasted bottle in the porker barrel. You will deserve a roly poly as from here to tomorrow. And to hell with the drift bombs and the bottom trailers. If my Melee was bag enough, I'd send you a Toxis. By Saxon Chromactus, you done that lovely for me. Didn't he now, Nubulina? Tiny mite, she sturdiest was. With her listening coifer, her dream of Insland's day last in the glorifiers of being presented made to majesty. Wipe your glosses with what you know, and less in the pity, for she isn't the lollipops she easily might be if she had for a sample Virginia's air of achievement. That might keep her from throwing delf. If I'd more in the cups that peeves thee, you could cranksmith your rose turnies.
Catastrophe and anabasis.
As I was saying, while retorting thanks, you make me a reborn of the cards, where all its boys and bows, all sings and all howls.
The rotary processus and the re-establishment of
For I,
reciprocities.
for I flickered up all my crams as they crumbed from the table, singing glory, all as all as surum, cog it out. Here goes a sum. So read we in must book, it tells. Her prophets most who bilks them best, and that soul-berated sicken giar of yars have tea spilled all my hazy decency.
Kunk titty titilatio, conquery, conk thigh, tickly thigh, lig gerlig, tittery tot, leggin a tea, luggin a log, two at a tie, three on a thricky till Ohio, Ohio, Io, miss.
Forge away, Sonny Sim, sheep shoop, bleeding goad, it is the least of things, eyes in thee, imagine it, my deep darty dolard, it is ours giving, not more. I'm only out of bridging over the guilt of the gap of the histodecency. You are 100,000 times welcome, old wart sampler, hell beat, you're just about as culpable as my Woolfield merger would be.
The twofold truth in the conjunctive appetites of oppositional orexes.
In effect, I could engage in an arrangement over you till you were publicly, royally, two bily, Prusy blue in the shirt after, for 3 shillings, a blue dye sacrifice. Triophanti de bestii. Uh, and if you're not your bloater's kipper, may I never curse again to that pint of took of Jamison. Old Keen now, your rod, hook and sinker, old Jubilee Keeny. Biddy's hair, mine lubber. Where in the Quinn where in that Quinn where is that Quinn? But he knows it not, but what you that you are, my popular infanticis, were born with a solver arm up your sleep.
Trishagion.
Thou in shanty, thou in scanty shanty, thou in slanty scanty shanty, bide in your hush do. The law does not allow you to shout. I plant my pen stock in your postern, Chinera pot, Av, and let it be to all remembrance, veil, vocation of mating waters, not kilty, but of manager was, ho, for auld lang Salvi Steiny, I defend you to champ my Scolan's praises, to book alone belongs to Loeb, four masters mead, ging lamps, soapy geyser, the smell of gory Mac Gusty, will make tomorrow when we are making pill scrummage to Wabogganry with staff, scarf, and blessed wallet, and our aerosols round our neck ken crops, whereas and when heavy scrinder daddy parent who offers sweet meats will gift uns his noblet surprise.
Abnegation is adaptation.
With this laudable purpose and loud ability, let us be signalified. Betwixt me and thee, Hong Kong. Item, Mizpah, ends. But while the dial are the doodling, dwelling over the mugs and the grubs,
Enter the cop and how.
Oki, impostulopolis. The divvy wants that babbling brook. Dear Auntie Emma eats. Steady, 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 steady. Strataviamus.
Secures gubernant urbis terrorem.
Many, 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 many. Mandium biamus. Strike the day off. The nightcap's on nigh. Gone. We'd had our day at Triv and Quad and writ our bit as intermediates. Art, literature, politics, economy, chemistry, humanity, etc.
Cato.
Duty, the daughter of discipline. The great fire at the South City markets.
Nero.
Belief in giants in the banshee.
Saul.
A place for everything and everything in its place.
Aristotle.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
Julius Caesar.
A successful career in the civil service. RC, disengaged, good character, would help, no salary.
Pericles.
The voice of nature in the forest. Where lily is a lady found the nettle rash.
Ovid.
Your favorite hero or heroine.
Adam. Eve.
On the benefits of recreation. Bumbla plibla blah bully. I could do as I like with what's my own. Nanamanai.
Domiton.
If standing stones could speak.
Oedipus.
Devotion to the feast of the indulgence of Portinucula.
Socrates.
The Dublin Metropolitan Police sports of Balsenbridge at Balsenbridge.
Ajax.
Describe in homily and Gillian monosyllables that the wreck of the Hesperus. Able seaman's caution.
Homer.
What morals, if any, can be drawn from Diarmuid and Grania, rarely equal and distinct in all things?
Marcus Aurelius.
Do you approve of our existing parliamentary system?
Alcibiades.
The use of abuses of insects.
Lucretius.
A visit to Guinness's brewery.
Noah. Plato.
Clubs. Advantages of the penny post.
Horace. Isaac.
When is a pun not a pun?
Tiresias.
Is the coeducation of animus and anemia wholly desirable? Jets and the beanstalks with the little rude hiding rod.
Marius.
What happened to Colintaff?
Diogenes.
Since our brother Jonathan signed the pledge of the mediations of two young spinsters, weary like the wailed prophet in a spookery,
Procne. Philomela. Abraham.
why we all love our little Lord Mayor,
Nestor.
Hingler's Circus Entertainment,
Cincinnatus.
on thrift, what sins is prim money sans Paris,
Leonidas.
the Kettle Griffith Moynihan scheme for a new electricity supply,
Jacob.
traveling in the olden times. I've lost the place. Where was I?
Theocritus.
American Lake poetry.
Joseph.
The strangest dream was ever half dreamt. Something happened that time I was asleep, torn letters, or was there snow?
Fabius.
Circumpension, our allies the hills.
Samson.
The Paranleets, just towards Henry Tudor.
Cain.
Tell a friend in a chatty letter the fable of the grasshopper and the ant. Mick for his pain, Nick for in his past.
Aesop. Prometheus.
Santa Claus, the shame of slumdom.
Lot.
The Roman pontiffs in the Orthodox churches. He has Toglerist in Bordeaux all over his agrammatical parts of face and as for the Hippophoxophiz, unlucky number, late for his christening.
Pompeius Magnus.
The 30-hour week.
Militare strategios. Solon.
Compare the fishish style of Jimmy Wild and Jake Sharkey.
Castor. Pollux.
How to understand the deaf.
Dionysius.
Should ladies learn music or mathematics?
Sappho.
Glory be to St. Patrick.
Moses.
What is to be found in dust heap?
Job.
The value of circumstantial evidence.
Catalina.
Should spelling?
Cadmus.
Outcast in India.
Ezekiel.
Collecting pewter.
Solomon.
You, monsieur, or monsieur, monsieur, nagno, monsieur.
Themistocles.
Proper and regular diet necessary for, ere we hit the hay, brothers, let's have that response to prayer.
Vitellius.
If you do it now.
Darius.
Delays are dangerous. Viva vite.
Xenophon.
Gobble Ann. Tea's set. She's enough. Mock soonly will be in a split second per the chancellery of his exchequer. On,
Pantocracy.
Mama, look, your beef tay's fizzing over.
do,
Bimutualism.
try,
Interchangeability. Naturality.
car, crush. The image of a hand with a backwards L coming out of the thumb. Kish is for antichrist and thee free of my hand to him.
Superfetation.
Shay,
Stabimobilism.
shocked,
Periodicity.
oct,
Consummation.
ni,
Interpenetrativeness. Predicament. Balance of the factual by the theoric books and kooks amalgamated.
geg. And gags for school and crossbuns and whoops, he'll enjoy his soul off over our drawings on the line. Their feed begins, the image of crossbones.
Cacao poetics lipidenes of the ungumptious.
Night letter. With our best Eulidide greetings to Pep and Mimi and the old folkers below and beyond, wishing them all very merry incarnations in this land of the livy and plenty of pre pro sub pre-prosperousness through their coming new yonks. From Jack, Jake, Jack, and Little Swansea, the babes that mean to.
Whoa. We got there. We
So
did
mad.
We made it.
I'm so mad.
it. Don't be mad. We covered it. We fixed it. And that was, over the course of 3 weeks, the Mighty Night Lessons chapter 2, parts 1, 2, and 3 from Finnegan's Wake, which might or might not have sent us completely around the bend. TJ had internet problems in the middle there, but we managed and we covered. Aside from that, how are we feeling, gentlemen?
That was the night.
It should be known. It should be known that we did this all in one sitting.
Mm-hmm.
I've realized I just need to be dropped in and angry to just read through. No, there's one line that stood out to me throughout the whole thing. It's a dense section, but it might be a change to my possible Finnegan's Wake tattoo.
Mm. Oh.
Asphalt body and concrete soul. I'm sorry. That's so damn good. That's so damn good.
Well, we'll put it on the list. I'm sure we'll have a lengthy list of candidates by the end of the read. How was it for you, Neil? How did it feel to hear that out loud?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing when you just try to piece together the comprehension aspect of it, and we talk about the style and the substance meeting, and who ultimately is the writing for, kind of, right? And you have the different perspectives on it. So it does tap into this whole idea of learning in general, I think, of a lesson and being lost and then finding yourself and having people at different places in that. So it captures a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. And different kinds of subjects that they're taking on at different times, history and math and English and these different kinds of things. So there's
a French lesson thrown in there in the middle of it.
Yes, more Latin than I would have liked to have seen. They came up against a wall of Latin. I thought, oh, okay, here we go. But that's part of the challenge.
Yeah, I think it's that whole thing of, constantly going back and forth between like the epiphanies and then like drawing back from it. I think in terms of that long parenthetical, we kind of talked about that Toby that will be in the second episode, in the middle of this sort of constructing that triangle, and there's so many gems in there, and I think the whole thing has to be seen as a kind of gem, but then part of that is going back and forth from the crystallization of meaning and then slipping away. And again, if you're thinking of this as mapping on to life, right, which I think it is, I think he's ultimately writing this piece. You asked who is the audience? Like if you think of in terms of marketing terms, right? Like the audience is it meant to be a kind of covenant with the reader, right? And then, well, who is the reader? And I think ultimately his covenant here is with, in his own grandiose way, his covenant was with the universe, right? And that's who he's trying. Am I right? I almost feel that the constant subtext of this is Joyce reaching out to like the gods and saying, "Am I right?" Just like is it like, am I getting this right? Right? I mean, he's not interested in all the layers that someone would say, like, well, but what's the couldn't you make this more manageable for someone? It just wasn't that wasn't his goal, right?
Well, the thing I like about this structure is it feels like the barest example of Joyce's process with the annotations and the footnotes and things like that, which traditionally in the rest of the book is folded back into the text and is maybe buried under the surface. This kind of feels like right clicking on a website and then seeing all of the code that builds that. When you go to inspect a page and you can see the way that it's all been coded. And I feel as though a lot of this, he's leaving the mechanisms clear to us. And because so much of what he did, he wrote everything by hand, and then he would go back and correct and analyze and annotate. And he's leaving the annotations in there for us to see those connections. And I find that very interesting, because I feel as though this is also maybe similar to a lot of his process elsewhere, where he'd be annotating and correcting and changing, but then we don't see those annotations elsewhere in the book, but we see them here.
Yeah, it actually felt like I was like, oh, this is the first time that I think the language kind of matches where the characters are. Because I imagine you are a student, right?
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, they've just done this play, right? They're tired. They're told to sit down for their lessons. And sure, some of the words hit, some of the words don't, right?
Yeah.
But have the teacher draw a diagram. Yes, I'm absolutely copying that down in my notes. Like the ability that, if we're sitting in class, some things really stick out to us and have distinct clarity, while the rest of it just kind of washes over us. And I will say, Neil, I think the benefit of having you read that first section is it was the closest to what when Toby played Joyce reading the book that I've heard. Just because like you're comfortable with the text and you know the way that sounds, and like you said earlier, you trust the words. And when Toby played in an earlier episode Joyce reading the book, he's just flying through it, and
Mm-hmm.
you just get lost in the rhythm of it. And so I could tell that you trust the rhythm of it, and I think that made it like things stood out to me more, because I was like, I hear the joke, I hear the spin, right? And now I have a goal to be able to read Finnegan's Wake in the style of Neil.
Yeah, it's very musical the way you read it now, and so something for us to try to emulate. And then obviously we were tripped up by the language enough that we were.
I like to say that it was like, it was mastery, intermediate, and then begin.
But it's interesting because in the context of this lesson, right? Like we can imagine that Shem, as the artistic one, is like probably the most literate, the most comfortable in the, like you think of a classroom, right? The kid who's like the most comfortable in the world of it, right? And then you're trying, I mean, there's that great line of one of my favorites, like the I can, but are you able? Right, when they're talking about doing the problem, and then of course it has so many layers, right? Because you have the brothers, I can, but are you able? And then I can, but are you able? Who's the can? Who's the able? How does it play in this? Does it play in the level of understanding? Are words kinds of weapons? I mean, so all of that layering then plays in this, and then the processing of it is very much like has to be in the rhythm of the piece by the nature of because of how it's being written. But then clearly in a teaching, you have to bring people to that place. You can't teach a language to someone and expect that they're going to start at that point, right? So how do you learn? And again, if Joyce is trying to do this as a mapping onto the world, like how do you learn the universe, right? How do you learn the makings of the universe? And this goes back to that thing I've said in terms of how I think we sometimes think of like this as math as this really difficult thing that needs like stages and stages of learning more and more and more and more, right? No one feels insulted if they haven't taken Boolean algebra being told, hey, by the way, you don't really know Boolean algebra yet, right? Whereas with
Right.
language, it's like people sometimes get to this point. I think this is what the with something like this, like they get to a point where they're like, oh yeah, I've learned seventh grade. I'm told that like in business speak, you never want to get past seventh grade, you'll lose people. But then if we're really trying to understand the world, like, okay, at some point, are you content with just like the daily cookie cutter fortune cookie wisdom that you're getting from seventh grade wisdom? If you are, then that's fine. But then understand that every time you're upset with no one thinks that in math, hey, can you dumb down that physics proof or that physics problem for me? Like they understand that in order to understand it, they have to get to that level
That
of
level.
physics. Like so with language, it's like, why do we think culturally that like everything should stop based on where business speak stops, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's the real cultural challenge with something like this, because no one ever wants to feel that they don't know something. Like it's like the worst thing, right? And we all feel that so in our gut, no matter what. It's like one of our main anxieties. And at the same time, it's so valuable to understand how difficult language is. I mean, as a sheer like teaching point, the starting point for this should be everyone should question whether or not they think that sort of those cookie cutter platitudes that they want to exist at that sort of align with their, sorry. See, this is the drink part where I go too I go too
No,
long.
no, no.
I
No, we
go
love
too
it.
long
We
with
love
this because again, you have to land this plane somewhere, and I'm not sure, and that's the problem. Like that's sort of
it.
that's the madness of it, I think, in a way.
Well, and I feel as though that's why this is one of the most often abandoned books in English literature, where people feel as though they're up for the challenge, and then they get a few pages in and are disheartened by the fact that they can't follow it without sort of learning the rules, and so they walk away, which is partly why we decided to do this podcast, because we wanted to stay accountable to it, to go, we're not going to always understand it, but we kind of want to go for that ride. And sometimes I feel as though we spend an hour sitting here just making noises at each other, and I go, I don't know if I got much out of that one at all. But it doesn't mean that, but then I always re-listen to it after, and I always get more re-listening to the thing that we've said. And you go, oh, this just bears out that you need to be patient with it. You need to come back to it. You need to look for different things.
Yeah. It's this is the first time that I have found in anything that I've ever written a way to describe like monumentous days of like weddings, funerals,
Mm-hmm.
birthdays, like day be as dense as a decade. Oh my god, right? But you get stuff like that, and I was like, that's the only time that I've heard that description and I actually feel like it fits things in my life, right?
Mm.
And it's like it feels earned. You know what I mean? It didn't feel like it was just dropped in my lap. It's like, oh no, that spoke to me through the ether, and I appreciate that so much more because it's in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's well put, because I think it's also like the earning thing is like what it takes to kind of achieve that. Again, doing like the math analogy, sometimes it takes a long time to land the proof, right? But it's not like you can get to the proof without the work. And I think to the point of like this is, I think too often people read it, especially like they feel like they're really good with good readers, and they get to this and then they dismiss it as like him not like doing the right thing. As if, and again, that's where I'm like,
Right.
well, wait a minute, you would never say that with someone who is trying to solve a really difficult
Right.
math. Oh, why are you doing why are you doing all that? I know more
Yeah.
than you do, therefore you're wrong. And that's like, I think it's like you have to trust this. I mean, to not trust him and to read it and then to not trust it. I can understand the frustration, but to not trust that he knows what he's doing
Yeah.
is
And
it's
then
a weird move, I think.
and I feel as that the trap in this chapter is you see the annotations and you think, oh, there's a key here. There's a way in. He's giving me a way in with these annotations. But so many of the annotations are almost as difficult as
Oh,
the text itself, where you go, where you would assume that any kind of, I mean, the annotations in the columns are almost like catchwords, where someone has written a note to remind themselves to come back there, or this defines what is in that paragraph. But so often, like we were talking earlier in the first episode about how if you find a previous student's textbook with the annotations and the margins. The annotations might help you, but they might not help you because it's shorthand for
They're not
the
for
user.
you. Yeah.
They're not for the reader. They're for the user. And for the user to come back or to remind them of something or to aid them in future revision. And I love the fact that Joyce does not bend to the temptation to explain anything or dumb anything down within those annotations. I feel as though that when I first saw it, I thought, oh, maybe we'll get, because I mean, we've talked about Infinite Jest a bunch on this podcast, what David Foster Wallace does with his footnotes. And a lot of his footnotes are very much about explaining what's going on or really filling out the world. Here, Joyce is not concerned with that. And that's not the point of it. And so I find that quite fascinating. So, Neil, your buddy you talked about in the first episode worked on 8 pages of this. We heard this section here. What was it about this section that really made him focus here?
Yeah, so it's the 8 pages started in the text on page 286 with problem ye first. Then it runs like a page before that long parenthetical, which runs several pages, which he does not include as part of what he studied, picking up again on the top of 293, and then running until the QUED on the top of 299. So it's about 8 pages of text when you remove that parenthetical. And I think it was in that concentrated moment he could break down all the layers of what each line would do. Again, that I can, but are you able is from that. And just other things like that. So you could talk not only about the resonance of the language, but the layers of meaning, the surface structure. There's a lot of Freudian stuff you can get in there in terms of like how the layering works in terms of conscious and subconscious, what we're perceiving. And you can just, but again, like it's better. I sort of went off. If I had to redo what I just said, because I think I went past where it should start, which is like just literally looking at a line and then figuring out. There's that line on 295 when she gave me the Sunday clothes she hung up for so when she give me the Sunday clothes, we also get Santa Claus, we get, and then before that, as great Shakespeare puns it. And it's so easy to say, oh yeah, so he's just like showing off, right? he's just look at what he can do with language. I think that is often a reaction to it, and something that's a wrong reaction. But again, it's that like within this, what does it mean to like show off as a writer, right? If it simply means like trying to understand all the levels on which it works in order to again communicate with the literary gods or whatever, and even that, he's not doing that in a pompous way. I truly believe what he wanted more than anything was to have what Shakespeare had with his Globe Theater. This is when the Globe like for Shakespeare back in that time, that was the world. As far like you could imagine that space as the globe, simply because we didn't have any kind of like correspondence channels like we have now or even back in Joyce's day, like. And so Joyce wanted that. He literally would have wanted this sort of, place to sort of project this out, trying to understand what words could do. Is there some way of mapping our world through language? And I think he probably would have said that words create us. Like words in some sense, like math is under language. The human is under language. Like the creation of once humans created words, we created a sense of possibilities of understanding, and then they took over, right? We then were trying to catch up at that point. We created this thing that was so difficult and so challenging and so multi-layered as it sort of tried to connect to our thing called human life, and then within that became mathematical attempts to do it. But I think it's important to understand those are beneath this. This is happening right now with like technology, which always tries to put math top, language underneath, and I think it's the fundamental mistake. Oh, with technology we can connect us. No, we can't. Like look what happens when you try to connect people through technology. Language potentially can connect us with technology and math, all these things underneath it, but we've reversed this, and culturally, education-wise, we've, I think, flipped the ways in which we can actually come together and the ways we can actually bond. And it's very, very, very hard. And we've tried to say, no, we can figure out the laws of language. It's my big beef with these guys like, again, a lot of these cog sci guys, like Wolfram Mathematics. We'll be able to come up with the laws of language. No, we'll be able to come up maybe with the laws of math because language is underneath, but you're not going to step outside and somehow become, you're gonna miss the breath between us. You're gonna miss the layers. You're gonna miss all of this. And yeah, so that's kind of where I am with what he's trying to do here. And yeah, this whole night lesson is really a kind of cool microcosm, I think, of that, right, within, roughly in the middle of this thing, as a kind of taking stock of it and then thrusting us back into it.
Yeah, and it's a lesson for the reader too, where he's sort of unpacking it for us. And you really feel as though Joyce is kind of like pulling at the thread of the sweater of all language, and just sort of unraveling the whole garment, and just sort of he keeps pulling, and it's one of those things where if he tries one thing, he uncovers a new thing, and then a new thing, and then a new thing, and the depth, and suddenly he's got 8 puns on one word, and he maybe didn't go in there expecting that, but it's the word that's doing the work for him.
Yeah, so that's a good way of, the word doing the work. And that's why when I get to like the end of this book, the fact that it all comes together in those like final like 10 pages, it's like you've learned the build and the trajectories, and finally all that pain and humor and sadness kind of comes to, and it would never have happened without the build, right? Like, and that's right. I think to TJ's point earlier of just like the earned piece of this, and the fact that you have to participate in the earning of it is very central.
Yeah, I love that you have to participate in the earning of it. There's books that I've read that I've just been like, it's happening before me. Well, at Finnegan's Wake, I feel like it's happening with me. I'm happening with it,
Yeah. And then you get to the final page and it says, go back, start again.
You've learned nothing.
Take all the things that you think you know.
Do it again.
Right.
Do it again.
Again and again and again. It's amazing. Yeah. It's such a tragic thing to think of Joyce as being so desperate to find that place in the world that Shakespeare had. But Shakespeare, he has the patronage of the Queen, whereas Joyce was stateless. Joyce was a nomad and felt like he had been exiled from his homeland and never went back for the last 25 years. It's heartbreaking to think of what this man was creating and doing, because I don't think he had an ambition to move back to Dublin and create a space for his work to exist. But the way that it was received as he was releasing it in parts must have really. I'm just astonished that he continued, because of the response. Most would cut their losses and say, okay, this excerpt that I released, that's the entire thing, I'm going to leave it at that. But for him to write the entirety, all 4 books, is kind of astonishing. So in terms of the story that was told, in each episode, we obviously talk about what happens in the episodes. And so it's a bit of a long one because it was over 3 episodes, but I just wanted to quickly go through talking about what the Oxford World Classic summarizes these sections, and I'm going to do all 3 episodes worth. So following the line and page numbering convention summarizing that text. So the summary of that chapter from page 260 to 308, called Night Lessons, says that the layout presents a central column where the account of some children's studies unfolds. The margin notes by Shem at first on the left and Sean at first on the right swap after page 292, while the footnotes are by Issy. Now, this is one theory. I also take Neil's characterization very seriously too.
I prefer Neil's.
Yeah. The major set piece of the chapter is a geometry exercise which starts on page 287, immediately interrupted before picking up again on page 293. So from 260 to 264.14, we follow the children through the evening streets and talk of HCE and ALP. 264.15 to 266.19, a survey of suburban Chapel Izod. 266.20 to 270.28, Before the geometry problem can be tackled, a muse is invoked to explain what meaning is. Women learn the meaning of life from Grammar's grammar. Grammar's grammar, and how that is to secure a mate. 270.29 to 275.2, some boring old history of war and politics. 275.3 to 276.10, while HC and ALP discuss the past, the children do their homework. 276.11 to 278.6, evening comes on. 278.7 to 281.29, Izzy's letter writing lesson, the Edgar Quinet passage saying flowers outlive great civilizations. 282.5 to 286.18, Frank or Shem likes arithmetic, but not algebra or geometry. 286.19 to 287.19, the twins Frank and Jerry must do Euclid's first problem, construct an equilateral triangle. 287.18 to 292.32, Frank, now Dolph, muses on teaching. 293 to 306.7, the triangle's construction and its interpretation as the mother's pudendum. The twins then discuss this. And then the end, 306.8 to 308, themes for writing essays, a sinister letters to the parents is signed by all three children. There is so much happening in this chapter. It's crazy. I love that Joyce is so free and easy with the naming of these characters that
He's like, now they're this person, deal with it.
Yeah, and it's the same person, but a different person.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear all that because you said earlier like Joyce doesn't provide any like actual landmark type thing. If you imagine those comments in the margins as you read, it wouldn't work. And it's absolutely right. Like, and it's interesting to hear them. It's interesting to know that sort of perspective. And in terms of what I was saying earlier, in terms of like where you organize it, it's a reading path that I don't know that it even affects the brain. If you're reading and who's doing this, who's doing that, it's like you're just trying to find the rhythm of it. Like it's like that whole, it sounds like you would be treated differently, but it's the same thing as like when you're in a play where you're in one of these play workshops and someone's doing a play, and they're the people who like will attack that play outside in, right? They'll sort of, this is what if you got rid of those four characters, and then there's another person who's just like, you try to listen to the playwright's voice, you try to get inside it to work through what they're doing, right? And so it's like there is that sort of sense here where it's harder to do that, but like you kind of ultimately have to, and then not try to land anything so much. Like, and the moment I feel myself trying to land something, I'm like, you find what Joyce does, which he always is questioning whether he's landing it, even though he's operating at this super high. He'll never like actually come out and one-to-one do that. So that's the leap of faith kind of in doing it, is this constant like sense of like not trying to hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, earlier on, like you said, reaching out to the gods to say, is this it? Is this it? And obviously you never get an answer.
Right. No, that's the thing. That's the torment, right? I mean, and that's still trusting yourself, right? That's the kind of interesting, and like, yeah, there's so much courage in that, which is, again, I think we've lost that so much too, which is why I'm so glad you guys are doing this, simply to bring it out into the world, because like, I think we've lost that humility. We haven't lost humility in certain respects, but we've lost it when it's paired with like courage and real like confidence, right? We've lost the marriage of that to some degree. We almost separate those two things, whereas really like they have to be together if we're going to grow. And I think we just give up too often because it's just too hard. And technology has made it even harder. I think that's now with multimedia and all these like layers of media, it's become that much harder to marry those two things, because you find so many outlets and passageways to have shortcuts. So it's like, I don't know what we do at this point.
Yeah. It makes me think of that that line from King Lear, as flies to wanton boys are we to the gods, where we can do all this sort of stuff and we can throw it all out there, but
to what end?
For what end? Because you don't know if it's right or not. It's we can only interpret it, and that's what Joyce wanted us to do, is to just keep reading and rereading his stuff, so to ensure his immortality.
Well, he might be right on that note. I still think that it will kind of stick around, right? I mean, and like in the end, like what really matters is that like tons of people are reading it, or the depth and care with which people are reading it is what ultimately will sustain something, right? So there is this sort of, I think, and that's why great literature tends to survive, right? And the stuff and fewer and fewer things survive the further away you get from them, right? So it's like the canon will continually adjust and get narrower as we move forward, which is an interesting and it'll evolve, and and that's kind of
And then I feel as though in many ways Joyce has taken the Irish place of Shakespeare as the national poet, and with the Bloomsday celebrations and all of the societies around the place. I mean, it's a really interesting thing that something like Bloomsday is such a public celebration, where it's not necessarily a conference of academics sitting in a room discussing the intricacies of a line, but it's a celebration of Leopold and Molly and Stephen in the streets. And many of the people celebrating Bloomsday are probably not Joyce scholars or people who are hugely familiar with the text, but they celebrate him nonetheless. So I'd like to think that he has a long life ahead of him in the way that he's perceived in the world. So much in there, and we have gone on a long time, and I've taken up a lot of your day, Neil, and a lot of your day, TJ. So are there any parting words that we have for the Night Lessons chapter? I mean, we know that we're going to return to a lot of these questions and points as we continue to work our way through.
I'm going to say something. This is controversial. What the APL chapter was supposed to be, I feel like Night Lessons was for me, anyways.
Right. So you feel as this is more important than Anna Olivia?
It hit me more. I'm more attracted to this chapter.
It's controversial.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't think. Yeah, it's not controversial. I think that there's a reason. I was talking about my friend earlier why he's stuck on this. I think there's definitely a lot of truth to that. I think as you go through this, that'll probably adjust. I mean, for me now, I think I've said this over and over. It's like it's that very end, right? And I could almost build the architecture of it to that point where I can like literally hit points that I remember that built, but then you go back and it shifts a little. So it's that ever evolving thing. I wonder how if it'll remain that central piece, or it will be, they're probably like in my brain, there are like 2 or 3 more possible touch points that I think I might say as, and I'm just it'll be interesting that's interesting to me as my final thought is like the two of you, since you're working through this for the first time, how that'll shift and how you'll think about it once you get to look back on it after you finish the whole thing.
Yeah, and what I'm worried about is we'll get to that point where you say this is the point at which the most beautiful piece of writing in the history of the English language happens, and we'll miss it. And we'll just be like,
where was it? Where was it?
Keep going. And Neil will say, what do you mean you missed it? But we have faith. We have faith. So that is all the time we have this week for Wake. We will return next week to plough blindly into more adventures for the Earwicker children. And I'm certain we have absolutely no idea what we're getting ourselves into. I've been Toby Malone, joined as ever by TJ Young, award-winning educator, busy changing lives, along with our favourite playwright, Neil Wechsler. Thank you for being here, Neil. It really is always a pleasure to have you along.
Well, thank you, and I think maybe I'll be back for one.
Oh, you will. We will get you.
Okay, so this is good.
We're going to get you back.
This is not.
No, not at all. We'll get you back into book 3, and we'll look forward to more self-deprecating rambles, also known as the only things of value ever to exist on this podcast. So thank you for that. But as for now, see you next week, learners and teachers. This has been Wake, a cold reading of James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake, just to hear it out loud. If you've made it this far, thank you for your dedication. Join us next week for another segment of Finnegan's Wake and a chat about what we've found. Wake is a Moon Street Media podcast, engineered by TJ Young and Toby Malone. Our theme song is The Ballad of Perso Riley, arranged and performed by Meg Logue after James Joyce. Wake is recorded in Canada, where Finnegan's Wake is in the public domain. For community and bonus content, join us at our free Patreon at patreon.com/wakepod. If you have questions about Finnegan's Wake, don't ask us. We're just as confused as you are. See you next week.